Good afternoon. My name is Christian Pagnou. I'm working in Toronto presently in the rheumatology division at Mount Sinai Hospital in the vasculitis clinic with Dr. Simon Carrette. My background is French. I moved in Toronto 3 years ago after having worked with Professor Guivin in the French vasculitis study group for the past 12 years in Paris. I decided to experience a different way. I decided to have a different experience abroad and work in Canada, and that's where I started and co-founded with Dr. Carrette in November 2010 the CanVasc network, which is the Canadian Vasculitis Research Network, and first task was to identify different expertise centers and different physicians with expertise in vasculitis all across Canada. The objective was initially to gather these people so we could start to conduct an awareness program, an educational program, and thereafter my hope is that we're going to be able to conduct some Canadian studies in collaboration with the other international networks and especially the Vasculitis Clinical Research Consortium in which Toronto and Hamilton in Canada are part of for the past 6 years already. So I'm the Vice President and co-founder of this Canadian Vasculitis Network. I'm also staff attending now as an associate professor in the vasculitis clinic in Toronto, working hand in hand with Dr. Carrette and conducting studies and participating in studies in the VCRC network and other prospective studies that are ongoing presently in North America. So prior to moving to Canada, I was involved in most of the French vasculitis study group studies, and especially the two last one, probably one of the two most important among the ongoing French studies that were the MAINRITZEN study, which is to determine what is the place of rituximab for maintenance in ANCA-associated vasculitis with systematic reinfusion of rituximab every 6 months to maintain remission. That was a randomized controlled trial comparing in patients who achieve remission with cyclophosphamide, Imuran, the conventional azathioprine, versus rituximab, 500 milligram every 6 months for 1 year and a half. The results were presented at the past ANCA workshop as well as the past American College of Rheumatology, and there were some clear differences in favor of one of the two arms, that is to say the rituximab arm. I was also one of the primary co-investigators of the CORTEGE trial, whose results were also presented at the past ANCA workshop, which was to determine the optimal treatment with corticosteroid and cyclophosphamide in patients older than 65 years old at diagnosis. This study was completed more than 2 years ago. There are some ongoing studies in France in which I'm still involved, especially the SUSPAN trial, in which I was the co-primary investigator with Professor Guivin, which is to assess the place of azathioprine on top of corticosteroids in patients with either Church-Strauss syndrome, EGPA, GPA, polyarteritis nodosa, or microscopic polyangiitis with no poor prognosis factor according to the French 5-factor score. Now that I moved to Canada, I'm now also involved in some other non-French study, but other international study as a co-investigator or sub-investigator in Toronto, that is to say the international PEXIVAS study, of course, to determine the place of plasma exchanges in ANCA-associated vasculitis, and I will be part of some other ongoing trials from the VCRCs or other studies which are partly funded or sponsored by pharmaceutical industry in Church-Strauss syndrome, in giant cell arteritis, and in almost every systemic vasculitis. Toronto has become, over the past 10 years, one of the main centers to manage vasculitis, working hand in hand with Hamilton. These are, for the moment, the two biggest referral centers in Canada, and I'm happy to be part and staff of one of these two centers. To work on all the different aspects of from the diagnosis to the management and to the follow-up of the patients, and to try to identify new medications, new way to improve the outcomes, to reduce the late side effects of the medications. So my background is more that of a clinician. I've been much more involved in clinical trials over the past years and clinical cohorts rather than in fundamental studies. But since I moved to Toronto and in Canada, I established several contacts with other colleagues working more in fundamental fields to try to develop as well some fundamental research projects with different teams across Canada. So I think it has to be completely balanced. At the same time, you need to keep feet on the ground and to develop something that will also immediately or more rapidly help and improve the management in patient. And that's what we are doing as well with the CanVasc, with the Canadian Vasculitis Network. That is to say, we are in the process to develop the Canadian recommendation for the management, that is to say, and including diagnosis, treatment, and then follow-up recommendation for patients with ANCA-associated vasculitis. Of course, there are some other vasculitis, and then we are going to tackle these vasculitis step by step, one after the other, to try to at least homogenize the care of the patients in vasculitis and to provide some, not guidelines, but at least recommendation, consensual recommendation to manage this patient, taking into account the specificity of the healthcare system in Canada. The potential triggers of each of these vasculitis first may differ from one disease to another. There have been some very interesting results concerning giant cell arteritis, lately presented at the American College of Rheumatology, which may differ a little bit from the other more autoimmune systemic vasculitis like ANCA-associated vasculitis. In these diseases, there is clearly a combination, like in every other autoimmune diseases, between environmental factor, potentially infectious triggering factors, but as well some genetic backgrounds. And all these different parameters merged together and combined together are likely to trigger something in a rupture of the tolerance and then the onset of the vasculitis. So we need to work on all these different fields to try to identify if there is one on which we could act preemptively, if possible, in some patients to limit the extent of the disease, and why not to prevent the disease to occur. For example, in patients with late onset asthma, a minority of them may develop some Church-Strauss syndrome lately, but we are totally unable to identify among patients with allergic or supposedly allergic asthma who will eventually develop Church-Strauss syndrome. And if we were able to if we were able to identify a triggering factor or a biological biomarker to determine who is at risk to progress to Church-Strauss syndrome, then we may act preemptively or at least detect these patients and make an earlier diagnosis and then limit the consequence of the flare and the disease. I don't think there is a unique triggering factor for any of the systemic vasculitis. For example, if you look in Kawasaki's disease, pediatric vasculitis, it seems to be triggered a lot by infection, but there is clearly several infections which can trigger the disease. So I don't think we're going to ever identify a unique cause or a unique genetic abnormalities or susceptibility on which we could act simply to prevent or stop the disease. It's really a combination of different parameters. Yeah, there are still lots of questions that are unanswered at present. For example, what are the triggering factors of the disease? What is the real impact and component? What is the real value of the genetic background as a predisposing factor to develop this disease? Are there different disease subsets? And then can we or do we have to adjust the treatment based on some disease subset that we at present don't know precisely? And finally, we know that all the medication that we are using nowadays have completely changed the outcomes and the prognosis of our patients, but still some patients, approximately 5 to 10% of the patients with ANCA-associated vasculitis have refractory disease. The conventional treatment is not working for these patients, and we still need to identify some alternative treatments for patients who have refractory disease and to identify less toxic medications and less toxic medication at the long term. So to answer to all these questions, and because vasculitis are extremely rare diseases, we really need to gather a lot of information, and we really need the patients to be implicated directly in the research to participate to cohort study, which are simple study, which are called observational. That is to say, we just enter the clinical data of the patients at diagnosis, then how they are doing during the follow-up, whether they responded or not to this medication. We can then identify whether there is any specific subgroup, any specific clinical characteristics of some patients which would predict whether they will respond or not to this medication. So at the end, we may end up with a tailored treatment depending on each patient individually, and that's going to be one of the future medicine, not to give the same dose of treatment to all the patients with all the risk of side effects, but the dose that is appropriate to each patient depending on their clinical manifestations at diagnosis. At the same time, we have the prospective therapeutic studies, the prospective therapeutic clinical trials to identify whether a new drug, a new experimental drug, could be more effective and or less toxic than the one presently available. And you may know that there are a lot of different new medication, including some what we call biologics, that is to say some monoclonal antibodies, some targeted therapy, as opposed to corticosteroids, which act on so many different cells, so many different proteins, that it induce often a lot of side effects. This biological targeted therapy are supposedly smarter, and there are so many different ones available nowadays that it's probably worth it to test at least some of them in our systemic vasculitis disease. There are many what we tend to call new kids on the blocks, but all of these medications are very expensive. All of these medications are relatively new. Some of them have been tested in some other autoimmune diseases, some not yet. And probably vasculitis should not always be the last disease in which this medication have to be investigated. We are often behind rheumatoid arthritis, for example, and I think if we had the opportunity to demonstrate to the pharmaceutical company, to the Ministry of Health, that we can rapidly conduct a lot of studies with patients being involved, that may push them to consider vasculitis as a first indication for some of these medications, and if there is a biological rationale to use these new biologics, then to more rapidly move on to a clinical trial to assess and to investigate these new medication and maybe end up tomorrow with some new treatments, less toxic and perhaps more effective. I don't think there is an ideal patient. Every patient is very different, but that's true to try to perhaps improve their care, their management, and perhaps to improve their outcomes. I think it's important for patients to clearly try to understand what kind of disease they have. These are quite rare diseases, and lots of physicians and nurses do not know that much about these diseases. So that's important for the patients to be aware of what are their diseases, to get some information, to get some knowledge about their disease, about the treatments, what are the pros and cons of these treatments. So they need to get access to some information, and that's why Patients Association and Vasculitis Foundation has been really important over the past year to develop some educational programs, some awareness program, so the patients know where to get some validated information and not be lost within and among the extremely homunculus number of information that you can get on internet. So the first point is probably for the patients to get some validated and good awareness of what are their diseases, what are the treatment they're going to receive. Secondly and it's very important, is to follow and to trust in their doctors. They have to take medication for years, sometimes for life, and so it's very important to be what we call compliant, but at least to agree with the treatment plan, so there is no break in the treatment, because every time there is a break, they put their life into danger with the risk of flare. So that's really something very important, to never stop the treatment abruptly, suddenly, to continue to follow the instruction given by the doctor, or at least to have a relationship with the doctor that is with full confidence, so they can exchange what are the problems they may get with the medication, so we can always adjust. We have nowadays a lot of medication, so we can always change the treatment for another one, which may be better tolerated, but as effective. So it's important to follow the prescription, to follow the indications, and to have a good relationship with the healthcare managing team of the patient, so to achieve a sustained confidence relationship between the two of them.